to Hong Kong Link, the University of Toronto Chinese Politics Society, and also the East Asian Studies Student Union for organizing this event, giving me this opportunity to share about my views on the Hong Kong future. This topic itself is dear to my heart, as I see Hong Kong as my home. Even though Toronto is a great place, I have many friends migrated here. But up to this point, after some serious reflection and self-search inside, would I like to migrate to Toronto? I'm sorry, I will stay at Hong Kong because that is still, to me, my home. This question of Hong Kong's future arises maybe after the umbrella movement. Before the umbrella movement, not many people ask this question, what may be the future of Hong Kong? Because most of us may consider that if we could have universal suffrage for our chief executive election, and then the election of all members of the Legislative Council, Hong Kong might have a bright future. So all our focus was on the election or the introduction of universal suffrage of the two elections. Sorry, I have spoken many times these few days, so I need to have some kind of help from the traditional Chinese drinking. Hoping that will help. But as you may all know, that the 89 canisters of tear gas changed the whole Hong Kong. And that made the consideration of the future of Hong Kong become a live issue. After the end of the occupation, many people started to consider Hong Kong's future. What will be Hong Kong's future? The basic law, as a lawyer, I know that there's no time limit for the basic law. Even though the basic law says that the capital system will be maintained in Hong Kong for 50 years. So the 50 years, this time is mentioned in the basic law. But actually the basic law will continue, at least from a legal perspective. But what may happen after 50 years still attract a lot of attention among Hong Kong people, especially the young people. Joshua Wong visited Toronto a few weeks ago. We often joke about this saying that in 2047, that is when the 50-year expires, he will be at the same age as I am now. So what may happen to him when Hong Kong faces that 2047 kind of final point? So this issue about Hong Kong's future becomes, as I say, a live issue, especially the young people, because by then I might be around 18 or more, so it may not be too significant to me what may happen after 2047, but to the young generation, they will have to face a Hong Kong, whether that Hong Kong is the Hong Kong that they would like to live in. So they are very concerned about the future of Hong Kong. Now some of the people in Hong Kong, when they consider the future of Hong Kong, they consider just the future of Hong Kong because they have a very strong resistance against China, especially after the umbrella movement. So they care just about Hong Kong. We just want to talk about Hong Kong's future. We don't want to care about what happened to China. I can understand the feelings they have, why they care about Hong Kong, and to some of the young people, they consider themselves as Hong Kongers and not Chinese. So I can understand their feelings. But as I will put forward in this presentation, that it is not possible to consider Hong Kong's future without considering also China's future. And actually the whole idea of Hong Kong's future that I'm going to present was inspired by a very famous China watcher, Professor Benny Tai. Some of you might remember that last year, at around this time, he published an article on the Wall Street Journal. And in that article, he talked about becoming Chinese crack up. He said the end game of communist rule in China has begun, and Xi Jinping's ruthless measures are only bringing the country closer to a breaking point. So that article attracted a lot of international attention about the China's future. Actually, a few months earlier, he visited the University of Hong Kong, and he came and talked about the article he has written. And he said that actually the title, Becoming Chinese Crack Out, was not his words. That was the editor's created title. So he was not that pessimistic about China's future. So not long after, he published a book, China's Future. And actually the whole presentation that I'm going to do was inspired by this latest book by Professor Benny Tai about China's future. To briefly recite what he said in this book, he said that China is now at a kind of roundabout. As you know, we have roundabouts, you have many exits. And he mentioned that there could be 4 exits for China. The first one is neo-totalitarianism. That will be the kind of governance structure like during Cultural Revolution under Mao Zedong's kind of totalitarian rule. So one possibility, the exit of China would be neo-totalitarianism. So Xi Jinping may move and picture himself more like a kind of Mao Zedong. Now the second exit is he called it hard authoritarianism. This is to compare with the soft authoritarianism. Now the soft authoritarianism is the kind of governance structure under Hu Jintao's administration. At that time, still the Communist Party dominates, but there will still be some room for the civil society, especially the first half of Hu Jintao's rule. The civil society will still have some room to operate, so the control might not be as much as we now experience. So Xi Jinping now is implementing what he calls the hard, what Liu Shenwen calls the hard authoritarianism. Suppression, a lot of control in civil society, and many people embraced it for their different opinions. So that's the second and the third exit. The fourth exit is semi-democracy. Now, Liu Shenwen's view that it is not likely that China will adopt some kind of democratic system like Western states, but the Singaporean model of democracy, in which you have a ruling party, there will still be election, there will be rule of law, there will be a certain degree of freedoms, but still under some kind of government control, but still the people can have a certain degree of freedoms in the society. And that might be a possibility of adopting the model of democracy that China may adopt will be this kind of semi-democracy, this Singaporean style of democracy. So he mentioned these 4 possible exits of China. Now, according to his view, though I do not totally agree with all his views, but at least that what he presents seems to be sensible, that if China moved back to neo-totalitarianism, the regime will not be able to cope with the changing economic and social environment of China. So that would be a possibility that the regime will collapse. So we talked about the end game in this previous article. He was just saying that that's a possibility, one of the possibilities. But the choice will be the leader's choice, that whether they will move back to neo-totalitarianism. So that might be some signs that China will move that direction, but that still will be the decision of the leaders, especially Xi Jinping. Now he predicted that the most likely exit that will be taken will be the path of authoritarianism, continue the existing path. But he is also quite pessimistic about this choice. Even though the collapse may not come as fast as neo-totalitarianism, but it will still come. It will be just a delay of the coming of the collapse. Now, his view is that it's unlikely that China will move to soft authoritarianism. Though personally, he thinks China should move to soft authoritarianism, under which there will be more reform possible, and it might be possible to adjust to a certain degree the economic and social changes in China, but that would not be sufficient. So his view is that if China moves to soft authoritarianism, that will provide a groundwork for further change into semi-democracy. Then he believes that the transition will be able to be successful, and China will be able to continue its economic growth, with all the society will continue to prosper and all this. So that's David Sherman's view on China's future. So I provide a quick summary of his work. Now, as I mentioned, that his book inspired me to consider the Hong Kong issue. So I patronized to a certain extent. So I prefer not China's future, but Hong Kong's future. So Hong Kong's future will also have, Hong Kong is also at a roundabout. And Hong Kong's roundabout also has 4 exits. The first one is one country, one system. Well, one system. And that is that Hong Kong will become just like other cities in China, like Shanghai, like Guangzhou, Beijing, maybe a big city, maybe still the very important financial center, but Hong Kong will lose its uniqueness. No longer Hong Kong will be a special administrative region, so that will mean at the end of one country, 2 systems. Now the second exit is the continuing of the existing situation, one country, 2 systems. Now, in the past years, I think Hong Kong people debate a lot what we mean by one country, 2 systems. But now we have an official statement of what is one country, 2 systems. That is pronounced in the paper, in the white paper of the State Council issued in June 2014-2014-2014. So I call it the white paper version of one country, two systems. That is not the kind of one country, two systems many Hong Kong people think we are. We should have. It is a kind of one country, two systems. Yes, we have the capitalist systems in Hong Kong. We have our own legal systems. But the most important thing of this white paper version is that it is a kind of autonomy within a birdcage. The most important aspect about autonomy, that is the election of the highest post in Hong Kong will be subjected to the screening power of China. So this version of one country, two systems put one country before two systems. One country control what can happen to two systems. The two systems can have a lot of autonomous room, but that will be only granted by the central government. If the central government wants you to have that, you can have that. But if the central government does not want to have that, sorry, that will be decided by the central government. All you can have is what the central government gives. That is the white paper version of one country, two systems. Now the third version, the third exit, I call it genuine autonomy. I'm referring to the international law on autonomy, though it might be, this area is still an evolving area, but the understanding of autonomy, not the basic law defined it, or not the white paper defined the autonomy, but the international practices of autonomy. One very important thing to differentiate from the previous exit is that we can elect our leaders, chief executive, and all members of the Legislative Council without any interference from the central government. Maybe the central government still retain the power of appointing the chief executive. So if we elect someone that the central government would not accept, the central government can refuse to appoint. Now that is still compatible with the international understanding of autonomy, but now, as you know, that under the white paper version, we could not even have that right to elect our leaders. So the genuine autonomy exit will be a situation that Hong Kong people can, still under the Chinese sovereign rights, but Hong Kong people can elect our own leaders so that we can exercise, I call it genuine autonomy. So it's, as some of the people not from Hong Kong will be very, find it strange that when you talk about concept, you have to add the word true or genuine there, because all these concepts have been played by all sides to try to put in the meaning that we want. So in order to show that what we talk about is something what we want, so we call it genuine or true autonomy, as is put here. So that's the third exit. Now the fourth exit is independence. Now I can still remember again that in the early or mid-90s, when I was teaching there at Hong Kong U, in a class, we had some exchange students from over the world at that time already. And a student from Yugoslavia came to me in my constitutional class and asked, Professor Tai, how come Hong Kong people had no sense of asking for independence? Now, the students from Yugoslavia, I could understand why. Because that was the time that the people of Yugoslavia, now I think there's no more Yugoslavia, they are all now into different states. They were searching for their own future about independence. So the student had that kind of thinking in mind. When she came to Hong Kong, she found quite strange that how come Hong Kong people had no such sense of asking for independence? Actually, I could not provide an answer to her at that time. Later, I wrote an article and tried to find an explanation that Hong Kong people does not nation. And for a long time, Hong Kong people live in a borrowed place at a borrowed time. So we do not have that very strong sense of a nation. Therefore, we just have no such sense of such a quest for independence. Now, this situation continued until the end of the occupation, the American movement. And we started to find that some young people started to question the whole discourse of the past. And they started to think about the possible independence of Hong Kong. Even, I think, some of you here of older age, you may consider very difficult to accept the idea of even the top of independence. Okay? Not to say that you support, even the top of it, you find it very difficult to accept. But I believe that this understanding or this sensitivity about independence will continue to grow in Hong Kong. Okay? So these are the 4 exits of Hong Kong's roundabout, and which will be chosen. There are several levels of questions, or several levels of approaching this question. What's your personal preference? That is one. Okay? You want independence? You want to have one country, one system? Okay? The other level is what you predict the possible exit of Hong Kong's future. Okay? So we're just doing some rational, objective projection of what will be the future. So that's another level of approaching this question. Another is that what you may consider, what might be the views of the Chinese government, okay, how they will see the exit of Hong Kong. Now, as I will put forward in the coming presentation, that I will see that the 2 roundabouts, that they are connected. The China's future, the China's roundabout, the animation is not working. Actually, the car will actually go from here and there. China's roundabout will surely affect Hong Kong's roundabout. And now that can be easily explained. I don't think I need to do a lot of elaboration for that. But some, as I say, some Hong Kong people, especially the younger generation, will resist of any saying of that kind. They say, I don't care about China. Don't talk about China. I don't want to know about how China will affect Hong Kong. I just don't want to see that. Well, that may be your choice, but if you want to understand the reality, that you will have to consider the possible influence of China's choice to Hong Kong's choice. And why China's choice will affect Hong Kong, I think, as I say, I do not need to have a lot of elaboration for that. The political ties between Hong Kong and China, the shared cultural tradition we have, and also the economic link between the 2 places. That can easily explain why the things in China will affect Hong Kong. Now, but the other issue is about the choice of Hong Kong's roundabout. Would that affect China? That will be more original, I would say, than the things I'm going to say. For the things that how China's choice will affect Hong Kong, I think that maybe still some people might have considered that, but I'm going to present something that's quite new. Will the choice of Hong Kong affect the choice of China? And I'm going to present, I hope that I've got sufficient time for that, I'm going to present the fifth exit. Would that be a fifth exit? Both for China and for Hong Kong. Okay? Now let's go to look at the China's future and Hong Kong's future. Now, as I've already presented the China's future, as presented by Professor Benny Tai. So neo-authoritarianism. So the likely result that will be a collapse. So if China walk along that path, and if China goes along that exit, if China adopt neo-authoritarianism, now that is possible. That what will happen to Hong Kong? One country, one system. That is very compatible with the way of neo-authoritarianism. Now you can consider if cultural revolution happened now, not 50 years ago, and after Hong Kong has been a part of China, do you think Hong Kong can withstand that fire of cultural revolution in Hong Kong? So if that happened, Hong Kong may be converted back to one country, one system. So that will be a possibility. Now, hard authoritarianism matched quite well with the existing version, and actually what we see now is the evidence of that the hard authoritarianism matched with the one country, two systems, white paper version. So if Xi Jinping continues to its policy now, its way of governance now, I don't think we will have any change in the Hong Kong situation. We will have the one country, two systems, white paper, continue, the 831 decision, no way we can change that. You will not have genuine democracy, all this. I think that will continue to happen. Why is hidden here? This plot. Again, I think there's some special reason about this presentation, because I'm going to say some quite subversive. Now, but as predicted by David Shanghai, neo-authoritarianism or hard authoritarianism eventually the communist regime will collapse. So, yes, in the transition, we may have one country, one system, or maybe continue the one country, two systems, white paper version. But when the communist regime collapses, what may happen to Hong Kong? This is a very paradoxical result. If China, the communist regime collapses, that may be the only possibility that Hong Kong can go for independence. Now, if the Chinese regime continue to maintain its grasp over Hong Kong, and comparing the size of Hong Kong, the strength of Hong Kong with China, there's no way. I think no matter how determined you want your independence, even if you can import some kind of weapons into Hong Kong or what, I don't think there's any chance you will get independence. So the only chance of independence of Hong Kong taking that exit is that very paradoxical that China adopt the neo-authoritarianism and hard authoritarianism, but on the condition the things happen as what David Shanghai predict. Okay? If David Shanghai's prediction goes wrong, then we will be in the two previous situation, and this hidden block actually is independence. So that might be some kind of magic there trying to stop me to talk about this. Okay, now, if China adopts this soft authoritarianism, that's moving back to the Hu Jintao's kind of way of governing, So more freedoms, limited reform possible. Now that provides the possibility for Hong Kong to have genuine democracy, genuine autonomy. And if according to Shanghai's view that will be the basis for further development into semi-democracy, now genuine autonomy for Hong Kong will have a good chance. Okay? Though Shanghai's view is that very unlikely that will happen. So very unlikely Hong Kong will get genuine autonomy, but at least there's a possibility. So you can see now the connections between China's future and Hong Kong's future. What will happen to Hong Kong if China adopts a particular way of governing using Liu Xiaobo's terms is that the exit, which will be the exit. And Hong Kong will respond to that. So some will say that, okay, it seems that we could do nothing in Hong Kong then. Let's wait for the change in China, and that's it. Now, you may do so, or some Hong Kong people may do so. But to me, I think that I believe not many people will want a country-one system. There may be some young people, or some even not necessarily just young, but some Hong Kong people will say that let's try for independence. Okay? A lot of people will not be satisfied with the white people version, but we may have to accept that as a reality. But still, some may want to do something that will at least provide us a better chance to decide our own future, no matter that is independence or genuine autonomy. So that is the point that I'm going to talk about, is that what will happen in Hong Kong, or the choice of Hong Kong people, will that affect the choice of China? That is about the right to self-determination. Now, actually, since the time of the first negotiation of Hong Kong's future, there were people talking about whether Hong Kong enjoys the right to self-determination, whether Hong Kong people enjoys the right to self-determination. But at that time, we have the basic law with the promise that we'll have universal suffrage, even though we may not be able to elect our leaders immediately after the transfer of sovereignty, but after 10 years, according to the timetable, we'll be able to elect. And so many people just say, you don't need to talk so much about right to self-determination. But in the early 90s, actually, the International Commission of Jurists has published a report about Hong Kong. And in that report, the Commission stated that according to the international law, Hong Kong people enjoys the right to self-determination. And this view is supported, and according to my research, at least by two very serious study by some international law scholars, that Hong Kong people enjoy the right to self-determination. Now, but what is the meaning of self-determination? It is not equal to independence. So what I mean by self-determination, now under the two international covenants, the International Covenant on Civil Rights and also the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, both covenants in Article 1 state all peoples have the right of self-determination. And by virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. So if you read this article carefully, people, now this is a term, is a technical term. This is not the usual understanding you have of people. It's not any human group under international law. people are human groups that are under colonial rule or under alien domination. Now, but that is an understanding, especially after the Second World War during the decolonizational period. But at the end of the so-called decolonization, that this concept of people is continually evolving. At least some scholars assert that people require two aspects. That is, any human group wants to claim the right to self-determination. They have to satisfy an objective test and a subjective test. An objective test is that they are different from other human groups on the ground of ethnicity, race, religion, some kind of objectively identifiable features that they're different from other human groups. And the second test is a subjective test. That is whether the community, the people, the members of that human group has that awareness that they are different from the others. They have this identity that we belong to a particular human group which is different from all other human groups. And now the prevailing view is objective tests more important than subjective tests. I must admit that. But that's still, I can find strong academic opinion that the subjective test is more important than the objective test. Now, why I raise these questions? Because this will be relevant to Hong Kong, the Hong Kong context. Are Hong Kong people a people that have the right to claim self-determination? Depends on whether we satisfy the requirements of people. If you use the objective test as the basis, it may not be that easy to claim, because we are of the same race, Han Chinese mainly, and difficult to differentiate from mainland China. And we speak Cantonese, also the same dialect spoken by the Congo province, and no major religion. So that will not be easy for Hong Kong people to claim the right to self-determination. But if the subjective test is more important, now that will be another story. Now, I have to turn the clock back a little bit. Remember the student asked, from Yugoslavia, asked why Hong Kong people has no claim for independence. She asked in the 90s of the last century. I would say that at that time, even for subjective tests, Hong Kong people did not qualify to be a people, because we, at that time, we did not have that self-awareness that we are different from other parts of China, or a different or unique human group. The situation is very different now. After the umbrella movement especially, this kind of awareness that we are a people. We are a people. Okay? So this will be relevant in our further thoughts about Hong Kong's future. And according to the covenant, that the most important thing is free to decide. So we have the freedom to decide. To decide what? The political future. What will be our political future? Okay? And later I'll illustrate further. But also to decide our economic, social, and cultural development. The two aspects. If you are a people and you have the right to self-determination, you have two things you can do. Decide your political future and decide your economic, social, and cultural development. And we can take it as the two aspects of self-determination, the external aspect and the internal aspect. The external aspect is about deciding your political future. The internal aspect is about You have your own future, or you can decide your political status, and then you decide what may be your economic, social, and cultural development. So the two aspects. So for Hong Kong people, we firstly have to assert that we are people. If we are people, then the external aspect of the right is that we will decide our political future. The internal aspect is that we will decide our economic, social, and cultural development. Now, many people mix up self-determination with independence. Now, many human groups who exercise their right to self-determination have chosen independence. But that does not mean that that is the only choice. I refer to the United Nations General Assembly Resolution 2625. That is one of the most important documents of the United Nations on the right to self-determination. And in the resolution, it states that the establishment of a sovereign and independent state, the free association or integration with an independent state, or the emergence into any other political status freely determined by a people, constitutes modes of implementing the right of self-determination by that people. So there are actually four choices. The first one, independence. That's many groups exercising their right of self-determination, they have chosen independence. But there are two others. Now, the free association may not be too significant now. That's like a trust territory of under the United Nations. So that's the kind of political status. The other one is integration. Remember one of our example roundabout. Integration with another state, that means that one country, one system. Okay? So, if we exercise our right to self-determination, actually, we can decide to be one country, one system. This is still. So, self-determination does not mean to be independence. It can be one country, one system. And the fourth option, any other political status. Now, that's connected with what I've talked about, the international law on autonomy. So, the fourth option of the exercise of the right to self-determination in determining our political future is to be an autonomous entity. Now that's different from one country, two systems of the white paper version. White paper version, you have the autonomy. Why? Because I grant it to you. That is white paper autonomy. The autonomy, the self-determination, the autonomy of the self-determination is that it's a right. I have a right, and the central government has to respect my right. It's a totally different story. So, if we have the right to self-determination, and if we exercise this right to self-determination, we can decide what will be the political future of Hong Kong. And we can choose one country, one system. Surely we can talk about independence. So in Hong Kong, now even though some people actually in Hong Kong have started to talk about self-determination, but then people mix it up, saying that, oh, that is against the basic law. Talking about self-determination is totally compatible with the basic law. It is within the scope of the basic law. The often quoted clause is that, oh, Hong Kong is a part of China. Okay? So, yes, if independence, that may be contradicting with the basic law, but self-determination is just about the right of Hong Kong people to decide their own future, which include one version, one option, that is one country, one system. Okay? So the thing is that we have a free determination to our political future, but how we can freely decide our political future together. It is, now, self-determination is a group right. It cannot be exercised by individuals. themselves. I'm a Hong Konger, I cannot say I have a right to self-determination. Right to self-determination is a good right. It has to be exercised together by everyone. So how can we freely decide our political future together? Now, in many situations, they have used referendum. So that's why some of the groups now advocate that we should have a referendum to decide Hong Kong's political future. And among that, the options, the 4 options here, though free association may not be a very necessary option, but we can even include that. Integration, one country, one system, independence, and genuine autonomy. Now, right to self-determination is also a continuing right. As I mentioned, you decide your political future, then you decide your economic, social, and cultural development. Now, as it is a continuing right also as a group right, that is how democracy relates with the self-determination. So only if you have a democratic governance that you can have the real exercise, the external and the internal aspects of right to self-determination. Okay, so what I've presented here is about this idea of right to self-determination. But then what's the significance of that? Especially I'm not just talking about the significance of to Hong Kong. Yes, it's very important to Hong Kong. Now, if you go back to how China may affect Hong Kong, that if China, for some reason, collapses the regime, Hong Kong people, even if Hong Kong people wants to claim for independence at that point, if we could not set aside the subjective and the objective case, at least the subjective case, the international community will not recognize Hong Kong people to enjoy the right to independence. Now, if China moves to soft authoritarianism, semi-democracy, now again, we need to have this identity that we are a people, but we exercise our right to self-determination and we choose to be a genuine autonomy. So no matter if you talk about you are asking for independence or you are asking just for autonomy, not independence, it is important for Hong Kong people to build up this awareness of self-determination, that we are a people. So talking about this, about self-determination, I think is compatible with those who support independence and compatible with those who think that Hong Kong should be still a part of China. So some of you, if you are very supportive of independence of Hong Kong, actually I'm with you, I'm not against you, but just that, to me, I would think that it's one of the options. As it is a right to self-determination is a good right, therefore it will be decided together. Then let's join force to demand a referendum for Hong Kong people, and then decide what will be the future of Hong Kong. But that's only talk about how China affects Hong Kong. I haven't talked about how Hong Kong affects China. Original thing I'm going to say. Actually, that's the first time I talk about this idea here. I don't know if anyone knows about the provincial autonomy movement in China in the 1920s. Anyone knows about that? Now, after the 1911 revolution, Sun Yat-sen led the revolution, but then because to cause the end of the Manchu, the Qing dynasty, Yuan Shikai became the president of the Republic of China, and after the death of Yuan Shikai, China fell into a kind of warlord's era. And during that period, there were different efforts to try to bring democracy into China. Surely there were efforts trying to do it from the central. But all efforts failed actually at that time. But there were also efforts in the provinces. Some intellectuals actually started an autonomy, provincial autonomy movement. Actually underlying it is federalism of China, with the provinces to develop a democratic system. Now the whole China might be too big to start with the democratic reform, but how about we start from the provinces? So each province may have their own democratic election and their constitution, and then when the whole China able, or at least most of the provinces could be able to achieve that, then we have a national change. Okay? So that's the idea of provincial autonomy movement in the 1920s. So Hu Xi, one of the very famous intellectuals of China during that period, mentioned in a very important article he has written, a very important weapon to defeat warlordism is to give more powers to the region and to establish a federal system on the basis of regional autonomy. Okay? That was, so all the things we have talked about is nothing new. Less than 100 years ago, around 100 years ago, Chinese people have been talking about this, about autonomy in the region, in the provinces, and to use that as a base to build a democratic China, to fight against corruption, warlordism in China. So, if Hong Kong people started our self-determination movement. Now our movement may or may not be asking for independence, but the importance or the significance of that is that we develop a sense of, or a self-awareness of our identity as a people. The movement, the provincial autonomy movement failed in the 1920s. I believe that one of the reasons, there might be many reasons, I do not have time to go through the history on that, but one of the reasons was that the people of the provinces, they did not have that self-awareness as a people at that point. So federalism would not be an option to the Chinese people at that time. So we continue that tradition of a unified form of government, a central government and the regional governments under the authority of the central. But federalism requires something more, is that each of the regions must have this awareness of being a separate political identity. But because of a reason, they joined together and formed a federation. So, I'm going to end my presentation. Let's see what may be the fifth exit for Hong Kong, and also for China. And also how the things we are going to do in Hong Kong may affect the future of China. Is that if we can build up that sense of self-awareness that we are people, can we set to the whole China an example? As we look at Liu Xiangguan's prediction, the communist regime may collapse, but what will happen after the collapse? Some China watchers actually say that there will be no more warlords in China. Not that they will be replaced by another unified or centralized governance system. They suggest that it will be a total fragmentation of China. There will be no warlords. Actually, warlords require that you still have some parts they could form together, and then they try to compete with themselves. But The prediction, I'm not going to be elaborating more on that. If you want to know more, I will talk about that. But just it might be a total fragmentation of the whole China when the council regime collapses. So that will be the thing that Hong Kong people may offer to whole China. If we can start to build up this sense that we are people, and we will also want to join with other peoples in China to decide the future of the whole China together. So the fifth exit is that China will be a federal China, and Hong Kong will be a part of this federal China. Well, I think you have to bear with me about all these things I'm talking. It may be very in the Hong Kong terms, or lay or off ground, or not out of reality. Yes, I'm not just a political activist. Actually, I see myself not so much a political activist. I see myself more as an academic. And academics are always lay, always not close to reality, because it is important to our survival. Well, we have to see things beyond the reality. If not, we will not be able to produce any journal articles. So, bear with me of all this thinking. It may be to you very unrealistic, but at least I put a lot of effort in trying to look into the past and the present of Hong Kong and China, and try to provide at least a projection of what might be the future. And surely this fifth exit, even if it exists, whether we'll be able to choose it, there are many factors affecting that. But one thing I would say important is that we in Hong Kong need to build up this sense of awareness as a people, no matter for what, independence or autonomy. We still need to build up that sense of self-awareness. And maybe you have no interest about what may happen to China, a federal China, or what. You don't care about that. No problem. Because if we join together to continue to work in building up this identity of Hong Kong people, at one point, we may affect the development of China. And there may be a referendum, not just in Hong Kong, to decide Hong Kong's future. And there may be a referendum in China, the whole China, to decide China's future. So I think at least my presentation will cause you to have some kind of thinking. I can claim some originality in the work. So, and I'll surely open for questions about all of these. Thank you.